What I am planning to do is to talk for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then for the rest of the hour, we can have a conversation or go to the pool, depending on whether you have anything to add and whether I can learn from you or we just get bored and want to do something else. And I will be very happy to engage you as well. So if I feel that you are shy, I will call you out and ask you actively to be more active. As an incentive, I will give you copies of my book if you want them, but you have to want them. There you go, you want them, so you will have one. As another incentive, some of you may have seen I launched a t-shirt contest poll, where the question was, which should be the grand prize of these three? And it didn't matter what you voted because you are going to have one of each. So there is the Beneficial AGI Summit t-shirt, the Decentralized AI Summit t-shirt, and the Network State Conference t-shirt from my personal collection. The only downside is that it's all XL size. I don't have a variety of sizes, right? So you will have the option of wearing it or passing it over to someone who will appreciate it too. And the last remark before we get into the thick of it is to please either subscribe to my newsletter on Substack or just follow me on every possible platform. I'm trying to grab my name as my username everywhere. The only place I haven't been able to do so for the moment is TikTok. I'm something else on TikTok, but if you search for me, you find me anyway. And I cross-post. So it basically doesn't matter where you follow me, you will find the same content everywhere. I believe that the lack of interoperability of the platforms is horrible and a disgrace, but it is up to people creating content to find those that appreciate it rather than force someone to say, oh, you must come to the only place where I am present. Okay, so what I want to do is to speed run through two presentations. Each of these normally would be about an hour. And I have about 380 slides, 100 and whatever is the half for each. One of these will be about decentralization, why and why now. One of these presentations will be decentralization, why and why now. And the other will be about AI agents and cryptocurrencies, not crypto as in encryption, but cryptocurrencies, why and why now. I like to give a broader context rather than get into nitty-gritty technical details. And many of you come from different backgrounds, so I think it is better cutting across. And then through your questions, we can go eventually deep. So the evolution of our society happens through years and decades and centuries and millennia undeniably. The people who believe that humanity does not progress and we are bound to repeat always the same mistakes are mistaken, to say the least, in my opinion. Not only we progress, but thanks to the progress, we progress even better than before. Now, the ability to progress has a certain set of conditions. it is not because we are better people that we create better societies. It is because we have better technology that we can afford to have a higher moral ambition. As a very simple example, slavery was universal in the past. On every continent, in every society, there was absolutely no way that Spartacus, if he would be able to win, wouldn't find himself with his other former slaves and look carefully who would be the slave next day, because there would be no way that they could build anything otherwise. But today, slavery is out loud everywhere because we not only realize that it is wrong, but we were able to build a society that didn't depend on it and does not depend on it. And similarly, through technology, we will be able to fight against other dogmatic assumptions that we carry today, which we will realize are absurd looking back. So I, 12, 13 years ago, formulated this more succinctly, expressing it as the fundamental thesis of network society, saying that widespread social and economic change only happens once a solid technology foundation evolves to make it sustainable. Otherwise, it's just a dream. And in particular, that today, globally distributed and decentralized technologies have emerged that achieve superior results with respect to centralized and hierarchical ones, and that these technologies are unstoppable, and they undermine and disrupt the nation-state supporting pillars. And this is what I call, in the resulting socio-economic organization, network society. And thank you. And so when we started to talk about these changes between 13 and 15 years ago, we were already asking ourselves, what are the pillars of this change? Because I am concretely talking about what can be implemented in order to design distributed systems that are decentralized and resilient and self-sustaining. The most important one is energy, where solar, wind, and batteries create a new kind of grid that, rather than the energy infrastructure of yesterday dependent on the centralized source of oil and gas, can be implemented anywhere autonomously. Microgrids in Africa that don't need to be connected to a national grid, whether it does or doesn't exist. Formerly hard to reach sources that become not only accessible but sustainable and robust thanks to, for example, adding a Bitcoin miner, where more and more energy producers and energy distributors and energy networks realize that the traditional way of looking at Bitcoin mining that is labeled as wasteful and dirty is completely the opposite. It is the cleanest industry, is the most rapidly cleaning industry, and Bitcoin mining supports the stabilization of the electric grid because it is the only activity that you can bribe with money so that it turns off when the grid needs, for example, more juice that it has available, like this morning when the AC evidently overtaxed the hotel's electric system and we had brownouts. manufacturing, where 3D printing and digital manufacturing creates an opportunity to build things that don't scale with the increasing complexity. Whether you want to build and manufacture something that is simple or complex, it costs the same. And as this approach gets adopted more and more widely and deeply, we will basically have arbitrarily complex and valuable manufactured items whose cost is only proportional to the cost of the raw materials that are included in them. If you want to check out some of the reports of Rethink X, they are now focusing on humanoid robots. And independently of how expensive they will be to purchase or to lease initially, let's say $100,000, they are projecting the cost of manufacturing a humanoid robot to approach and then reach $2,000 in about 10 years. The next one is the production of food that depends both on energy and manufacturing, where hydroponics, LED lighting transform food production from 2D to 3D, with the ability to bringing agriculture in space or underground, rewilding the surface that today, because we don't know how to do otherwise, we have captured at an excessive degree and dedicate to food production. Personalized health, which is an objective, but at least let's start considering populations that are possibly smaller and smaller and smaller and more targeted, with cures for diseases that previously we were seeing as too rare and economically not viable, becoming possible to be resolved thanks to this approach. Peer-to-peer learning, obviously. The decentralization of finance and payments that started with Bitcoin, and it is a revolution still unfolding. The alternatives of self-regulating organizations as opposed to violence-based post hoc interventions in imposing rules of peaceful coexistence. And probably the most difficult of all, the activities of policy making that need to not only digitize, but incorporate faster and faster feedback cycles with the ability to sunset those regulations that do not work. One of the most important learnings that we should incorporate already is never to legislate something that makes the law persist forever. Always incorporate something that makes the law expire after 5 or 10 years, so that if it is not reapproved, it is automatically going out of force. So what we started doing after these kinds of analyses is looking at what countries or areas or regions of the world were readier to embrace this kind of change, and what kinds of immune reactions the nation state was already exhibiting, slowing down or countering this change. Whether it was the infamous bit license in New York that successfully positioned the US in the rear guard of financial innovation, protecting the incumbent interests at the cost of giving up future opportunities. Whether it is the lack of adoption of DNA analysis for personal use, because you are all prohibited from getting direct access to the sacred text of your DNA, always with the priesthood of official medicine there necessarily interpreting it for you instead. And this is a very dynamic situation where jurisdictional arbitrage is a necessity, especially in software, but in an increasing manner in other areas as well. Teams that are agile, adaptable, and inventive must understand where and how they can move rapidly from one place to another in the world that is and should stay open to this kind of experimentation. This is why startup societies are so important, because they give rise to tests that we can prove working, or on the contrary, more likely at the beginning at least, not working until we find solutions that can scale. So moving on the second part of this speed run, why is it important that AI and crypto intersect? And in particular, why now, how, and what for? So I formulated a few years ago what I call the paradigm of jolting technologies. Stanford University in 2019 published their first AI index, in which they plot collected data on a logarithmic chart where each step vertically is an order of magnitude, and they conclude that in 2012 something magical happened, which indeed is the case. AlexNet proved that neural networks have the ability to deliver results that since the 80s and earlier we have only been dreaming about, but then, in my opinion, wrongly concluded that it is possible to talk about two eras in AI, one before and one after. Instead, what we are looking at, and I will show additional reasons why this is the case, is a new way of technology evolution unfolding, where rather than, as in the case of Moore's law, for example, seeing a doubling rate that is constant in time, with our devices getting more and more powerful, doubling their performance every couple of years or so, originally measured in the number of transistors that we can build in a given area, and then whatever other measure we want holding for more than 50 years, we are now seeing the doubling rates of these technologies shortening. One of those who is able to articulate this very concretely, because they gained hundreds of billions of dollars in market capitalization, is Jensen Huang, the founder of Nvidia. Basically, at every keynote that he gives, he shows charts that are similar to this. Again, you can see this is a logarithmic chart, orders of magnitude increasing at every step. And if we clean it up a little, we can see that if they were following a merely exponential progress, which is a line on a logarithmic chart, over the past 10 years, they would have increased the power of their systems less than 1,000-fold. And instead, what happened is that they increased this power over 1,000,000-fold. So Nvidia hasn't been following Moore's law. It has been vastly exceeding what otherwise would have been projected. As a matter of fact, those who are observing and betting on AI progress in the combination of data, algorithms, and hardware are expecting the type of change that has never been observed in any technology before, with a tenfold or even 100-fold improvement in the performance of these systems over a single year, without this trend abruptly stopping, but continuing. And this is what is going to disrupt our current socioeconomic foundations, together already with the decentralization trends that I showed before, because of their super exponential nature. So if it were already, and it was, difficult to be able to acquire and then sustain an exponential mindset where you avoid the fate of Kodak that invented the digital camera without being able to leverage it, or of Nokia that didn't recognize of how important touch interfaces would be and lost their leadership in mobile phones. And uncountable other examples of leaders in various technologies that could not recognize the power of exponential progress. That is not even sufficient today. You have to acquire this new kind of jolting mindset. And the fact that this is hard is proven by experts in AI who certainly are accustomed to the power of exponential change, still naively or unsuspectingly declaring, oh, this was surprising. I didn't expect this to become possible for the next 10 years, but it is already happening today. Now, one of the important components of this is that we are already seeing decentralized open source AI systems winning. And for those who believe in open source and decentralization, this is natural and unavoidable. Open source won. It didn't matter how hard IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, and everyone else fought against open source. Without Linux, none of the systems that we use today would be possible. And it is at the heart of everything from personal computers to the largest data centers. And the same is happening in AI. It doesn't matter if, for a brief moment in time, closed proprietary systems appear to be leading. Open source catches up very rapidly and then potentially leapfrogs those as well. You will hear more and more countries talking about sovereign AI. And that is perfectly fine. Rather than one or two monolithic AI platforms, national sovereignty of AI will lead very naturally to a decentralization with a given granularity. Let's say 200 gigantic AI systems on the planet. But in turn, thanks to the jolting nature of the evolution of these technologies, in very short amount of time, we will go to ownership of AI, their data, their algorithms, their agency by enterprises, businesses, up to and including individuals. I won't go into details about this, but one of the reasons why we have been able to sustain exponential trends for so long, and now these jolting trends again, is because when a given approach doesn't work anymore, we immediately come and apply a new one that seamlessly continues the trends supporting what happened. Some of you may not know that we are living in the wrong branch of an unfolding multiverse. We live on the branch where the internet has been decided It should not work for trade and commerce. It should be and stay an academic exercise. That was the origin of the internet. That was the origin of the World Wide Web. And we are still not operating with native payment systems to the point that even the error message is not supported by browsers. They are not even able to tell you that there should be something. It's like a black blind spot in front of our collective eyes. Now, obviously, the first AI agentic systems that we are now starting to use are still primitive, and they improve, and they will improve very rapidly. But still, we cannot hide the fact that their paradigm is deeply broken and faulty. What OpenAI and every other agentic AI platform asks you to do, if you want your AI agents to conclude transactions for you, is to hand over your credentials, to hand over your credit card details, and then trust them, which is crazy, and it cannot scale. Instead, what needs to happen is obviously for AI agents to have crypto wallets that they own both legally and operationally, so that they can go out and do on our behalf with the equivalent of a fiduciary duty that you would delegate a human financial advisor in your place to apply, and then pay not only an external platform, but also to pay each other very, very rapidly, obviously. But I believe the opposite should also be true. We are an invaluable source of data, not only for targeting ads, which every one of us is sick of hearing, but we are an invaluable source of data for AI training of all different kinds. And micropayments are perfectly fine, so that as you walk and stumble but recover, your fact of being able to recover without hitting the ground is the basis of training a humanoid robot. That as you look in the world through your augmented reality glasses, the way that you move your gaze is again valuable and rewarded. How the AI ecosystem is going to exactly form needs to be found out. And we will certainly go into a lot of dead ends and then backtrack. However, it is important to recognize that if in 1994, when the internet was allowed to operate outside of the research arena where it was born, we, as technologists, were ready to adopt a technology layer for payments as horrendous as those of credit cards, born in the 50s, whose transaction costs are so high because of how inadequate it is for our modern needs. We must not repeat the same mistakes this time around, 40 years later. And of course, as we learn how to drive and create economic value from AI agents in the software layer first, very rapidly the same disruption will materialize in the physical world as well. And this will create a disruption deep enough to require a profound rediscussion of our social contract, where today, basically what it says in most parts of the world is that your worth to society is equal to your economic output, and when that goes to zero, you are worthless. And that is not going to be something that we can afford to keep once AI and robots and crypto will work together to certainly make the world a better place. But in the meantime, through the transformations, we would go into scenarios that in the last transformation that was similarly profound, and it was the Industrial Revolution, created human suffering that we still remember, and we call them Dickensian in the depiction of how bad life was in London or elsewhere as we learned to cope with the changes that this Industrial Revolution brought. So we want to avoid the suffering that this profound transformation will bring. And that is why it is urgent that we prepare and we make a resilient, decentralized alternative available, since nation states evidently are unable to provide the thought leadership that we could have entrusted them with. Thank you. So that was the speed run, and I want to respect the next speaker coming up, so I want to use the half an hour we have available and then hand over the microphone to them. And if you are still interested in continuing the conversation, of course, make myself available later in the afternoon or during dinner or after dinner or tomorrow at breakfast, or even if we are not in person together anymore, to continue the conversation, which I guarantee we are not going to solve this problem during these 2 days. I don't know what your experience has been for the 6 weeks here at ZuGrama, but I know I'm not going to find the solutions during my stay here before I fly out on the 16th. So I have a little ritual. I ask always at the conferences in the Q&A that the first question should be asked by a woman. All right, there she goes.
Hi, David. So could you share about the World Wide Web example that you mentioned, that 402 payment gateway isn't supported? And I'm curious to know why you think that this payment infrastructure should be facilitated or like added with the layer of World Wide Web, or why? I mean, for me, in the sense, it feels like, okay, it's not there. It's mainly like academic structured or anything, but it's not restricting any other payment infrastructures or standards to come through. And because of that, we have many different payment pathways.
So the possibility of incorporating various things, of course, is there. I, for example, am very proud that I was able to install on my phone and activate a UPI-compatible app while here in India. And I did the same when I was in Kenya last year, where they have M-Pesa, and similarly wonderful and widespread, one in one country, one in the other. But each of them is a national system only. And there is no global alternative to the credit card system except for crypto. So I'm not saying that crypto should dominate and eliminate everything else. We can build on top of it or alternatives to it, but I hope that we will find things that work everywhere.
So a little background, I'm in nuclear engineering, and we actually research how to make these kind of AI agents contractable in a legal sense of way. And I would ask you, I personally see a huge danger from established institutions, not only nation states, but also NGOs, International Monetary Fund, and so on, to basically regulate or come up with accountability frameworks that will not allow for a cypherpunk or Web3 ethos according implementation of these. And if you say it's up to us, I assume you talk to Web3 or cypherpunk people, or who do you mean with it's up to us?
The regulatory capture of institutions is extremely strong, ongoing, and in many ways increasing. So, for example, the World Wide Web Consortium completely abandoned its original ethical position by adopting Adobe's content control mechanisms that are not only not open source, but they are you are criminally liable if you want to overcome the restrictions that impose on you as a user. And that battle has been lost for 10 years now, or whatever the number. So definitely we run the risk that similarly restrictive impositions come to life in our financial transactions. And the European Union passed the MiCA regulation that appeared to outlaw self-custody of crypto. It has been half clarified that it doesn't until next time around, that they will try again. Europe appears to be hell-bent on introducing a CDBC, a central bank digital currency. I am extremely relieved that the US appears to have officially taken the position of not issuing a CDBC. So it is going to be a huge battle, and hopefully there will be jurisdictions that resist the pressure of homogenizing in the worst possible way. But if not, it will be up to forming a resistance that is potentially out of the law.
Can I follow up to that?
Please.
So I totally agree with the European Union. It's even as bad as we have the basic right to privacy, and the Data Protection Agency even told them we need to implement CK at least for lower payments, but they just ignored it. So the hopes for Europe are very low. Where the hopes are really up now is Argentina, and they're also planning on creating special economic zones like we saw in Honduras, Prospera. Like, this is the most promising field. If not America itself, we will see that developing. But even then, I would be worried about the functional role of FOSS, of free and open source software, if we don't manage to bring in the right legal ethics into this system and to create interoperability that is really openly accessible. So is this, are you addressing also the FOSS movement with it's up to us? Is this a part of it? Because you were standing up for open source.
So we don't need to rehash the ancient battle of open source versus free software.
No,
but I support not only the largest degrees of freedom, but increasing degrees of freedom. And economic freedom is going to be a huge battle, because these transformations that I illustrated are going to induce panic levels in nation states, and they will try to control the weakest possible subjects. And so we need to empower those weak subjects with easy-to-use solutions that give them autonomy, that empower them, and give them potentially self-determination in front of conflict that could could be disenfranchising.
And the last very short question, who would you think are our potential mightiest allies in this battle to reach out to?
Well, I have been part of a lot of battles in the 80s and the 90s. It looked like cryptography would lose and that we would not be allowed to have the powerful cryptographic tools that today we use and are still evolving and improving. And that was a big battle that we did win, but it didn't stop. Still, there are jurisdictions and legislations that periodically try to impose backdoors in systems that otherwise respect privacy. The latest is the UK that apparently mandated Apple to backdoor iCloud. That would impact everyone in the world and similarly. So it was for me surprising and interesting to see Apple standing up against these impositions around the world. I didn't expect to be an ally in this battle. So I cannot necessarily name who will be, but we may find them in unexpected places. And so we would and should keep our eyes open to be able to partner with those who can further our cause without prejudice, without a priori decisions that it will never work and we shouldn't even try. Yeah, let's move here in the front. And please, if you can, sorry if I forgot the first two times around, your name and where you are from.
Okay, I'm Kishore. I'm from Coimbatore. It's a neighboring state in India.
Okay.
From Kerala. So my question is, all these new accelerating movements or like new technologies, those are coming up, how this would impact the gig economy opposed to big economy, where like, you know, people nowadays would have 3 to 4 jobs because all these tech acceleration, you can do multiple things at a time. And this is a new sort of economy that is trending and growing, and expecting that in 10 years, people would be doing not one 8 to 4 job, rather than doing multiple things. And what sort of impact would this sort of acceleration in crypto, AI, and all different policy things could have impact this gig economy?
So today, it may be surprising if you look at it this way, but 60% of the time in the life of a person is not spent working in a job. Because you don't work when you are growing up and until you finish studying, and after you retire, whether there is or isn't a safety net, after a while you just cannot work. You stop working as well. And, you know, just roughly, if you sum the two together, that is the result. Also, in many places around the world, job participation rates are going down. So even people who are of working age don't work, or at least don't officially work. Another consideration is that the traditional approach of a 9-to-5 job is a result of the industrial economy, including office jobs that inherited a structure in assigning and executing tasks that look like a traditional industry. Now, we do have a name for those that are crazy enough and their ability to face and hopefully overcome risk and challenges, want to design something different from this kind of stable traditional job. And we call them entrepreneurs. Now, in too many places around the world, there is a very strong prejudice against entrepreneurship. Whether it is your mother telling you, oh, what are you doing? You should find a nice job at the bank or the large company, or very simply, your society is egalitarian and it despises success and it despises accumulation of wealth that success produces. We really have to fight against these prejudices because 9-to-5 jobs are going to disappear. And it is not a question of human survival, just as you don't count how many breaths people take and then present them with a bill to pay for the oxygen that they produced, we will be able to feed and to house and to cover healthcare for everyone without a problem. What will be a big challenge is billions of people who were told that they are worthless if they don't have a stable job, and who were also told that they are not capable or shouldn't even try to address the problems that they see around themselves, and that could be, they don't need a startup, because that is a very particular way of expressing initiative that doesn't work if you just want to solve the problems in your community. But taking initiative and taking action and being proud of the results, doesn't matter how small, is something that too many people were told they shouldn't do. They shouldn't care, the government will think of it. It is someone else's problem and someone else's job. So those people will lose their pride and their purpose, and they will not understand what they need to do in order to be respected in their family and their community. So activating the energies of 8 billion people to just do what they think can be valuable independently of someone else telling them what to do is the true spirit of entrepreneurship. Because someone else telling you what to do, that's for AIs and robots. We will bristle to the thought of a human telling another human what to do. What? I do it voluntarily if I choose to do it. You are not ordering me around. And this is going to be a very fundamental change. Yes, here, and then those two. Here first, thank you.
Check, yeah. You've touched, my name is Alicia, and I'm from India, I'm from north of India, and I've lived around quite a bit. Coming back to policies, you've touched upon how governments would be looking at, like there is going to be a change of hands and power in future. You're not here necessarily, but we've discussed this earlier today. But I wonder how you're looking at policy catching up with the change of technology and the rate of change of technology, which can be a little dangerous because this will lead to a period of disruption in between, a complete anarchy. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about which country catches up, like who jumps on the boat first, what advantages they have. If you could throw some light on that.
So there is a role for regulations and standardization in so many different ways. Our mobile phones work because there are standards. And if there were no standards, we wouldn't be able to talk to each other. So technological standards are very important. However, a lot of regulations are self-serving, and they justify the reason for a bureaucrat to receive a salary, and they serve basically no other purpose. Actually, they slow economic growth, they slow innovation down deeply. There are countries where the legal system is such that if there is not a law against it, then you can do whatever you want. And there are then other countries where the opposite is true. Unless there is a law that allows you to do something, you cannot do anything. So the expression that you used, anarchy, is actually appropriate in the positive connotation of the word. Because anarchy doesn't mean conflict. Anarchy means exactly that you don't have someone on top of you telling you what you are allowed or not allowed to do. And in the positive, peaceful coexistence of anarchic individuals, you can just do so many things without hurting anyone, actually creating common value. So I am in favor of that kind of anarchy, and I am against regulation preemptively expecting to know what should be done. Why this is particularly important in rapidly changing times? Because the assumption that just because somebody has been elected to appointed to a given position, they have the answers is a complete delusion. They are compelled to lie and to obfuscate reality because they are not allowed to admit that they don't know. And as a consequence, the decisions that they make are the worst possible decisions. And everybody else is expecting that they have the solutions, rather than jointly admit that we do actually don't know what is best, but let's increase the number of experiments that we make in order to find out. A great example of how this shouldn't be is the prohibition of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, in the European Union, where we eat the animals that are fed exclusively with GMO soy, because there is no other soy than GMO soy. And we have been doing it for decades. And we are perfectly fine, and the animals are perfectly fine, but the jurisdiction thought nothing about updating at all its preconceived notions that were born out of ignorance rather than out of science.
I'm Sandeep. I'm from down south, Andhra Pradesh. Firstly, I love your energy and your insight. But when the whole direction the presentation took about, all the technologies that are emerging are sort of are going to make the state feel very insecure or like decapacitate the state. This underlying thought, if you look at the history of technical progress, a lot of technologies actually empowered the state. The fact that the state is able to manage a military, or it's because a lot of technologies helped it, right? So if history, if history is saying me something, state seems to be benefiting out of the technical progress. So why do you say, or why did you sound so optimistic about the fact that all the technology progress that is going to happen further is going to actually decapacitate the state and not actually empower it?
So we cannot prove a counterfactual, but if I am right, then without the burden of military expense on our economy, we would have progressed further. And it is up to us to test this. It doesn't seem like we want to. Starting from the United States and other places, military expenditures are increasing. And classical economics is absolutely on their side. If you bomb a country to dust and then you rebuild it, that is wonderful for GDP. That is incredibly empowering, and the statistics and the numbers never looked better in Europe than after World War II, when they had to build a lot of houses because everything was in rubbles. So according to that line of thought, we should absolutely have as many wars as possible because that is great for economic growth. But of course, this is absurd. And I think that there are wonderful enemies if we want to target poverty and sickness and meteors killing us and climate change displacing hundreds of millions soon. We can find and unite against common enemies without having to kill each other and obtain great economic growth. There was another one over there.
Hello. So I'm Dhruv. I'm from Bangalore, India. So my question is, what will be the future of education if people don't have any purpose, because everything's taken care by machines and intelligence? Yeah.
Yes. So first of all, just to adjust your phrasing, progress will not stop. We have so many open questions about the world, and science is an unending journey. One of the reasons is because whatever result we take or we achieve becomes the building block of new questions that we can formulate. So we will never be able to say, okay, science is done, we have nothing more to discover. And this is also part of the answer. Driven by our curiosity and passion, nothing stops us from going along in the journey of discovery. Whether we are able to keep up is up to us. It may be necessary to radically transform the way we think, maybe even our bodies, to basically merge with machines. And a big conversation to be had is what are the limits of adaptability of human societies to include individuals that are radically transformed together with those who decide not to. So specifically, education is a word I tend not to use. Education is what someone else does to you. The word I like to use is learning, finding joy in discovery and understanding how the world works. And I don't think there has ever been a better time if someone wants to learn. Teaching is also wonderful, which is the sharing of what you learned. One of my ways of expressing this is, what did you teach today? Not what did you learn, what did you share? And it doesn't matter if you are not sanctioned to be a teacher by whatever license your country believes you should have before you dare to teach someone. It is just the joy of sharing knowledge even with your peers. And the future of learning is bright because rather than being constrained by the capabilities of the teacher in your local community, you can actually communicate and learn from the best, and they enjoy it greatly. The best teachers, the best communicators, wait nothing but hear from passionate people like you, regardless of where they are in the world. And that is a global network of knowledge and discovery that will only strengthen in the future.
Yeah, and I have a second question as well. So there are these decentralized open source platforms like DeepSeek and Linux, but they were created by people who were doing something else, and because they couldn't do that, they had to do this. So, for example, DeepSeek, the founder was working in hedge fund, and then when that stopped, he had no choice but to build DeepSeek. So, how do we empower and incentivize people to do open source and decentralized stuff?
Yes, that is a definitely open question where traditionally open source leaders had to find a sponsor, typically a corporate sponsor, so that they could dedicate themselves to what they were very good at, shepherding and promoting and building the open source communities supporting a particular project. And there are a lot of experiments about alternative ways of funding open source efforts. And they are very important, including that developers should not sell their time. They should leverage AI tools to as a force multiplier, and they should be proportionally compensated manifold rather than the minimum common denominator that looks for the cheapest possible solution, right? So this is also still open, but there are a lot of experiments that are going in the right direction. Last two questions, quick questions, and I will try to give quick answers because we are out of time. Is the next speaker here? Because if he or she is not here, then we can. He's here.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
David, my name is.
Yes.
My name is Job. I'm from Holland. You mentioned people leveraging tools. How do you see copyright in the forthcoming age?
So, copyright is one of the great examples of regulatory capture where industry interests have perverted what originally was the intent of authorship benefiting society at large. Today, the copyright laws around the world, successfully lobbied by the US and adopted against their own interests by countries all over the world, favor publishers and distributors. They do not favor authors or creators, and they definitely do not favor the general public. So I think current copyright legislation should be repealed, and absent that, there should be a universal revolt, which is actually already happening. Unfortunately, the consequence of the fact that we are all pirates and infringers of copyright also means that we are all liable of being fined, imprisoned, or killed by the nation state that wields these as instruments of differential punishment. So it is very important to have common platforms of solidarity so that we cannot be targeted and picked one by one, weakening our common position. Legal defense funds against supporting pirates. Sorry, yes, thank you.
Hi, David. I'm Aditya. I'm from Prayagraj in the north part of northern part of India. Yeah, I was thinking, how do you define the value metrics for the work done by the AI, and how do you pay, like, value it and pay for it, and like simply avoid the automation of the work which could have been done better by the humans and just give it to the AI? Yeah.
So there are three stages in the answer. First, current market forces could be fine to establish what is worth how much. For example, I'm happily paying the various pro versions or plus versions of the AI systems because I believe I'm receiving back value manifold with respect of what I'm paying. The second stage is a little more complicated because it is part of income and wealth distribution, where probably corporate taxes will have to increase radically, and it will be interesting how corporations react to that. Because when they start using extensively AI and robotic approaches, diminishing human employment, we will not have reached a point where we know how to help everyone. The third is the easiest because there will be a point where a vast percentage of the economy is in transactions between and among AIs, and it is just up to them. So they will work it out. And it is okay. How can we decide what they should do? And we do not have an answer to the alignment problem. So we do not know if an AI society will help or harm human existence. But as long as we dedicate very few resources to answering that open scientific question, we will never find an answer. So we are playing Russian roulette with our future in the universe. So thank you very much. Who should have, I didn't decide what is the criteria for assigning these t-shirts, which is one of the prizes today. So one of what I said at the beginning is who desires it the most? Who really wants it badly? Okay, that's wonderful. More than 3, that is already good, because one outcome could have been that no one cares. All right. So I do want to definitely favor those that asked questions who were in the first lines. And you could have chosen to come closer or raise your hand more energically. And so I would like to start with the books for all of you. It is published under Creative Commons. So if you find it on torrent sites or Anna's library, don't feel guilty about downloading it, because it is released under CC1. As an author, I am proud to find it torrented, because it means people care. But this is for those who love still the smell of paper. So why don't you please distribute it in the first line here? And I'm not going to launch these t-shirts, because that would remind me of someone else. But help me. Please suggest a way to give this t-shirt, because that's an interesting answer. Oh, you are. That is good too. Sorry? Okay. So I will reward the creativity of these answers. Which one do you want? The beneficial AGI or the decentralized AI summit? Decentralized. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you again.